Previously on version exclusive.
Obviously, we just got this Suicune Paradox thing with Walking Wake, and it just sort of made me wonder, could we see Ho-Oh and Lugia in some way soon?
We now bring you the exciting continuation of version exclusive.
With about a week since Pokemon Day, the Prime Directive and I have had the chance to think about Ho-Oh, Lugia, and their potential connection to the Treasure of Area Zero DLC coming this holiday season. Now, many of you might be thinking, how could it be possible that these legendary Pokemon have any major role in this DLC that already has brand new Pokemon at its center? Well, that's what we're here to lay out for you all, isn't it? The two of us will be putting on our theorist helmets and getting right down to it. Since you had brought it up last week, why don't you start us off, Prime?
That's right. So here's the skinny on this deal. I had the idea last week about Lugia and it slowly evolved to include Ho-Oh. And really, I think a huge part of it is due to the vibes and locations of our two DLC areas. The Teal Mask DLC will feature an island that boasts a very traditional Japanese motif, with the kinds of buildings and traditions you may have come across hundreds of years ago. That, to me, gives me a huge reminder of Johto, as a lot of that region is based on Kansai, which is really rooted in the past. Then, when you look into the Indigo Disc portion of our DLC, it's super related to water, and we'll see us visiting a school that's seemingly in the middle of the ocean and is partially underwater. And that really reminded me an awful lot of Lugia, and how its whole deal is being the diving Pokemon, which you find hanging out in the Whirlpool Islands over in Johto, presumably deep underwater as you traverse the caves. Now, games of the series have constantly offered us easy ways to get our hands on these two legendaries throughout the generations, but when it comes to Scarlet and Violet's DLC, I think they can do us one better than they ever have done before. Talking about introducing two sets of game-exclusive Paradox forms for the Tower Duo.
And that's where old Dexter comes in. Can't have you taking all the credit now, can I?
No, I guess not.
But before we talk about any crazy ideas like more new Paradox Pokemon, I think it's important to make sense of any other Pokemon being inserted into what feels like an already jam-packed story. Now, of course, their introduction could simply be a side quest of sorts in addition to the main story, similar to the Galarian legendary birds or the Regis in the Crown Tundra, but I feel because of the settings, it's far more likely to have some sort of direct implications on the stories these two parts are trying to tell. In the Teal Mask, I envision it being kind of like how Prime mentioned last week. Despite Ogerpon being based on the Oni from the Momotaro stories, I really do feel like this could be a situation of a Pokemon that's just being misunderstood as a beast. For instance, we have our two brand new characters, Carmine and Kieran, that have their roles in both DLC parts. Kieran is described as being gentle and quiet, and Carmine, his older sister, being very protective of him despite not always showing it well. So here's what I'm thinking. Perhaps Kieran has befriended Ogerpon in secret, not telling anyone about the charming Pokemon friend that he's made in the woods. But then one day, a terrifying Pokemon attacks the two of them, rendering Kieran unconscious, with Ogerpon defending the young boy with its life. People rush to the woods to see what the commotion was, only to find Ogerpon standing over the unconscious lad. It runs off, absolutely terrified of the angry mob pursuing it, leading to Carmine taking a bit of a lead role in the story, enlisting the help of the Silly Phrase trio to find and take down the Pokemon that she believes harmed her brother.
Yeah, and despite the fact that Carmine seems to be no big fan of foreigners, she still ends up asking the player character, and presumably their friends, to help with this mystery. You do some quests with her, working alongside those silly named Guardian dudes to gain their trust and help, and then you go ahead and you confront Ogerpon. But Kieran is like, leave him alone! And when he awakes from his unconscious state and you end up working alongside Ogerpon to take down hostile Paradox Ho-Oh, you become a real hero. This all sort of leads us into the next DLC, the Indigo Disc, which takes us far off into the ocean to visit Blueberry Academy and learn there as exchange students. This story will continue the Carmine-Kieran saga after you dealt with Ho-Oh and befriended Ogerpon and whatnot, but now with 80% more water! A newly motivated Kieran is new to Blueberry Academy himself and wants to try and become a top battler so he doesn't need to be saved by others too often, which is very noble if I do say so myself. So if you guys remember, back in our last video, we talked about that story with the Dragon Temple in Urashima. I was there, by the way, if you forgot. My dude Urashima ends up saving a turtle, and in return is able to go meet the Dragon King. I think we could reasonably have a moment here in the DLC where we have to save the Pokemon Terrapagos, which sort of unfurls a really wild story with a Paradox Lugia. It makes a lot of sense, like I said earlier. All of this water and the fact that we have the story of that Dragon Temple, it would sort of be interesting if, helping the turtle didn't put you in favor of the Dragon King, but instead put you in his crosshairs.
Yeah, I can see maybe a scenario like Terrapagos actually being used to power the Academy by a corrupt director, sort of an anti-Clavel, if you will. If it's truly connected to Area Zero and the terrestrial phenomenon, this would be so easy to explain. I mean, if you can build a time machine from its power, surely you can power an underwater school, no? So, in the process of trying to save it from the depths of the academy, some sort of crazy power surge occurs, awakening a dormant Paradox Pokemon 20,000 leagues under the sea. Now, one thing about this battle, along with the Paradox Ho-Oh, is that they would be very similar to the Titan battles, very difficult and possibly requiring some assistance. So we've laid out possible plot details, but of course I'm sure you're all wondering about the Paradox forms of these Pokemon. So we'll just start off with the Teal Mask's Ho-Oh. In Scarlet, the beast you encounter is known as Hatching Brood, a sort of three-way crossover between a Phoenix, a Vulture, and Ryuron from Yu-Gi-Oh! It would sport the Fire Ground typing and be a bulky physical attacker. However, in Violet, you'd be taking on Iron Prism, a speedy special attacking Steel Flying type monstrosity that no longer has wings, but is magnetically propelled through the sky with a circular disc above it. And since I went through the trouble of commissioning a photographer for this one, I figured I should maybe give it a signature move. Rainbow Beam would be a 2-turn steel-type move that deals a whopping 150 base damage and has a 30% chance to burn. Now tell me, what do you think about all of that, Prime?
Man, I think it's a really great duo of concepts for Paradox forms for Ho-Oh, and it also makes me upset that it would probably be hard to get anyone to part with their versus-exclusive form, since there probably wouldn't be like an extra one to capture and trade like the box art legendaries. I will say this though, I like the idea of this future Ho-Oh being a rock flying type instead of steel flying, as I enjoy the aesthetic of fire turning into just rocks as opposed to metal from cooling. I think that its signature move as well shouldn't even be a steel type move. Let's keep it fire. It makes sense since light enters a prism to create a rainbow anyway, and when I think of the fire typing, often it's what I think about with the sun or just light in general. I'm really into those Ho-Oh though. They'd be so fun to see, and the photograph we got for this one is super cool. That takes us to Lugia though. Obviously, it'll have a past and future variant for Paradox forms as well, and as for the future one, we're going to be calling it Iron Gale, playing off of the fact that it keeps its flying type just like our future Ho-Oh does, but with the water typing replacing its psychic. I see its design being like a submarine blimp combo, with the ability to traverse both the sky and water with even more ease than the modern day Lugia. It's going to be very fast and a good special attacker without a doubt. Though, what we have a picture of here is the past version, which sort of served as the inspiration for this whole theory to begin with. The Dragon King is so important in the inspiration of the story of our Indigo Disc DLC, and well, we thought it'd be kind of cool for the past Paradox Lugia to be like the Dragon King in this story. We'll give it the Psychic Dragon typing now, one not seen since Ultra Necrozma, so you know this one isn't actually overdone. We will call it Stalking Crate, which makes Lugia look a whole lot more like a fish dragon as opposed to the cool flying dragon it is in the modern day. Its wings are mostly turned into fins here, as you can see, serving as a way to basically make it even faster than modern Lugia is when underwater, and it's already a damn fine swimmer. Naturally, as Iron Prism has Rainbow Beam as an awesome signature move, we will give one to Stalking Crate as well. I look at this Dragon King as being a physical attacker, as many of the past Paradox Pokemon are, and we have a multi-hit physical type Dragon move that will hit 2 to 5 times, and have a 5% chance of raising any one random stat on Stalking Crate with each successful hit, and we shall call it King's Madness.
Such an insane name for an insane move. As always, despite Violet being my game of choice, I gotta say the concepts for Scarlet Paradox Pokemon really hit the spot for me. Now, of course, this is all just a theory. A Pokemon theory. But I have a really strong feeling that this is not far off from being possible. Who knows, maybe this also points us in the direction of a Let's Go Johto game in the future, or perhaps that beloved idea of a Legend Celebi. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself, as we've got the DLC to look forward to first.
You know, not to mention with you bringing up a possible Let's Go Johto, but they also did just give us Iron Leaves alongside Walking Wake. And while you could say, oh, they're just part of roaming trios, I think it's cool that we got a Johto Legendary and a Unnovan Legendary, when we're all kind of expecting Gen 5 as the next big remake. Maybe they're already teasing Let's Go Johto as well this generation, giving Suicune the rub. Who knows? I sure don't, because I just spent the last few minutes theorizing. I gotta say though, I think this is a pretty darn solid theory, even if incredibly unlikely.
I mean, I just said it's decently possible, but sure, just invalidate my feelings. I mean, I'm sure you would just know more. I mean, I'm only a genius and you're a grotesque bug monster. Oh, I should really just... Calm down, Dex. Remember your therapy. Anywho, what do you all think? Do you believe that we could see Paradox forms of the Tower Duo make an appearance in this 2-part DLC? Or do you believe this is a case of what you see is what you get? Be sure to let the two of us know down in the comments below, and as always, until next time, I am Noble Dex,
And I'm Slumbering Prime.
and we will see you all next time.